Okay, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whichever time zone you are in. So once again, a warm welcome to all of you for our every Friday series, Happy Hour of Coaching session. This is your host, Ashutosh Bhattodekar, and I hope all of you are doing great. And most importantly, are staying healthy in this pandemic time. So today I'm going to talk about agile testing practices and what are those agile testing practices which we can bring in our transformation, which will help us bring about agility in our workplace. I'm sure many of you would be from QA background. Many of you would be applying these agile practices in your day-to-day activities. And there would be something new also what you would be seeing in today's session. So I'm pretty sure there will be a lot of learning which will be coming up your way as a part of today's session. So I'll be predominantly covering some of the very important agile practices and how they are applied in our agile way of working. I'm not going to talk about any particular framework per se. So for example, I'm not going to talk about Scrum or any of those framework per se. But what I'm going to talk about is a general guideline on agile practices, right? And more specifically on agile testing practices. Now, just wanted to let you know, I was myself a QA person at one point in time. I came from a testing and a QA background and then have moved into an agile background. So that's the experience which I bring from a traditional way of testing. I've also been consulting various clients in an agile way of working, right? If at all QA practices have to be imbibed, how will we imbibe them into an agile way of working? Before we move ahead, just something about myself. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. Full name Ashutosh Bhattodekar. I also have a YouTube channel by the name Agile Coaching and Transformation Leadership. I'm pretty sure many of you would have seen that YouTube channel. In case you have not subscribed to that YouTube channel, I will give you the link of that YouTube channel so that you can also subscribe to the YouTube channel and you can get benefited. We have a lot of interesting content on the YouTube channel. So if you are interested, do subscribe to the YouTube channel because it will help you in your coaching journey. So if you're giving an interview or if you're going in for any discussion, do subscribe to my YouTube channel. So I have pasted the link of my YouTube channel onto the chat box. Do connect on my YouTube channel. I'm also there on Twitter. I have also written few articles on DZone. So if you want to connect on DZone and if you want to read these articles, please feel free to do so. I'll be more than happy to have your feedback and comments on it. And last but not the least, I consider myself as a coaching partner. So if you need any assistance during interview or if you need any assistance during any discussion for a new position, do reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to assist you on that, right? So with that background, let me immediately deep dive into today's topic and let me try to talk about what agile testing means. Now, during my agile coaching career, I have been hearing a lot of myths. And let me first try to break those myths. So one of the very prevalent myth which I hear is, you know what, that a QA person cannot become a Scrum Master or an agile coach. I would like to immediately break that myth away that it is not a true statement. It is a myth at the end of the day. Along with me, there are many other QA folks who have moved into the agile world, who have actually gone into the agile world and who have worked. Those people who are initially working as a Scrum Master and working as a QA lead or a QA manager or a QA tester, they have moved into an agile coaching role. So it's not that the industry discriminates. It's not that you cannot really become a Scrum Master or an agile coach if you are coming from a QA background. See, remember what are the attributes of a Scrum Master? He or she should be a servant leader. He or she should be coaching the team. He or she should be coaching the product owner. He or she should be coaching the organization leadership team. So those are the attributes which are required for a Scrum Master. And I absolutely don't see any challenge in QA people performing that particular role, right? So that's one myth which I wanted to break before I go into today's session. So in today's session, as I said, we'll be talking about some of the agile practices. So if you look at the pre-agile world, if I were to say, we had the software development team consisting of developers, engineers, architects, analysts, designers, etc. And then we had the quality assurance team Our quality assurance team comprised of testers or test architects, business analysts, then test authors, etc. And that was what was happening in the traditional world. And if you remember, there was this great wall of China between the two teams. So what used to happen was this team used to push something to this team. They used to say that we have done our development. The QA team or the QC team, as we used to call them, they used to test the product. They used to again push it back to them saying that there are so many defects in this product. Can you rectify? And then there was a cycle. There was a cycle which used to go, and there were a lot of conflicts which were happening between these two teams. As you would have remembered, right? The good old days of waterfall or the good old days of traditional software development, where you will find that there were a lot of, I would say, conflicts, or there were a lot of, I would say, the lot of the pushing the wall syndrome, which was there, if I were to put it. I have something, so I dump it on the other side of the wall. You have something, so you dump it on other side of the wall. And most of the time used to get wasted in these handovers, right? Handover from one team to another team. So I remember very pertinent conversations which used to happen, that I sent you the build on mail, or I sent you the defect report on mail. The software development team used to say, no, but we never saw the mail, right? We just went home yesterday, right? Those classic discussions, right? In those good old days of when Agile was not in vogue, or when Agile was not there, right? So those discussions used to happen, right? Now, moment an Agile way of working came, what it brought about a culture of one team. So gone are the days when I could be a specialist batsman or a specialist bowler, and my team or my position in the team could be guaranteed. No. Are you an all-rounder? So when we talk about an agile team, can you, besides development, what else can you do? Don't tell us that you're only skilled in or you're only expert in one skill. What are the other things you are skilled in, right? What are the other things you can pick up? And this one team culture also is something like a T-shaped skill. I'm pretty sure many of you know what is a T-shaped skill. A T-shaped skill is a presence of more than one skill. So my core skill is here. So my core skill is something which is here, but on the panel, I have some additional skills. So on the beam, I have some additional skills. So not only I am a good developer, but I'm also into, let's say, architecturing, or I am also into story authoring. Similarly, when I'm coming from a QA background, when I'm expert in writing test cases or generating test data, capturing test results, publishing defect report, that is not just going to be enough in an agile world. You need to pick up some additional skills. You need to go ahead and pick up some additional attributes which will justify your position in the team, as I said, right? So that one team culture doesn't mean that you bring developers and testers together and you create a team. Over a period of time, you have to cross-fertilize the skills, which means developers will have to pick up some skills, testers will have to pick up some skills. And the best thing I have seen for testers is if they can work with product owners. If our testing community or if our QA community can work with product owners in coming out with especially during the backlog refinement process, in breaking down the epics into user stories, helping them with the acceptance criteria, helping them with the acceptance test scenario, nothing like it. So that's the first important change, a fundamental change, where you have the development stream coming with their set of skills and expertise. You have the testing team coming up with the skills and expertise, and they form that one single unified team. That is the first step, if I were to say, in a cross-functional team. So cross-functional team doesn't mean that you hire developers, you hire testers, and you create a team. That is not really a definition of a cross-functional team. That was happening in waterfall also, right? So what change have you made? Even in the good old days of waterfall, you used to have few people who were from developers. You used to have few people who were testers who were there, right? And they used to come together and they used to create a team. But what is different now is that this one team culture, what we have, this one team culture at the end of the day is a composite team, and the endeavor is to bring them to a T-shaped skill, which means they have to have both. Again, I'm not saying that your testers have to immediately start working on coding. No, That is not what I'm trying to tell. But as a coach, as a leader, as a scrum master, I need to encourage them to pick up some additional skills. So what we are slowly seeing in an agile world is that there is no what we call as a distinction of roles. So we don't call anyone as a Java developer or a QA person. We call everyone as developers as per the new Scrum Guide. Of course, this term developers is coming from the new Scrum Guide. Developers just doesn't mean this now. Okay, so the developers means person who is working in the team to develop a world-class product as per the requirements given by the product owner. And where are those requirements lying? Those requirements are being stationed in what we call as the product backlog. So our product backlog is nothing but a prioritized list of requirements, and the product backlog will contain the requirements, and the team of developers, whether it is QA, whether it is a Java programmer, or whether it is .NET programmer, they will come together and they will build the product. So when you say QA people, they are also building the product. One fundamental change from a waterfall way is, in a waterfall way, the general tendency was that testers break the product. Here, I would say that they not break the product, they bring about resiliency in the product. So by the way of test cases, they're testing the resiliency of the product rather than breaking the product. They're testing the resiliency of the product. So it's a cross-functional, self-led, self-organized team. And at the before any engagement starts, they come out with a collective agreement. They come out with what we call as a team charter. So team charter is a document which will talk about the collective agreement which we as a group of developers are going to abide by. So this is something what we have agreed. This is something what we will abide by it. And that's what we call as a collective team agreement or a team norm, if I were to say. The goals of any agile way of working remain the same: early delivery of value, early failure, faster time to market, and a quick feedback, right? So agile just doesn't mean faster delivery, it also means faster feedback. So if I'm launching something, can I get a quick feedback? Can I get a quick feedback from my stakeholders? Can they give me a feedback that what's working, what's not working, and what are the things which need an improvement? Also, it could happen that I have developed a feature. This feature is liked by all, and based on this feature, there are enhancements which have come to it. So there are some enhancements which have come to it based on the feature which is rolled out in the production. As far as critical enablers are concerned, so no, don't confuse this enabler with the enabler in SAFe. That is a different enabler altogether. What I mean by enabler here is, which are the, I would say, things which will help us in achieving agility. So it could be testing practices like test-driven development. It could be behavioral-driven development. It could be test automation. It could be building a CI/CD pipeline. It could be coming out with ATDD or acceptance test-driven development. So those are the practices with which we can come out with, I would say, agility, with which our QA folks can bring about agility in our transformation. Okay, so now coming to the fundamental difference between how does a testing operate in a traditional world and how does a testing operate in an agile world. I think the picture speaks for itself. The picture on the left-hand side, as you can see, unlike the waterfall methodology where we actually build a product all at once, which means you get 100 features at the end of 100 days. Here in an agile way of working, you're getting one feature as per the cadence what you have planned. So if it is a sprint, it could be 1 week to 4 weeks. If it is a Kanban, it depends on the lead time and the cycle time what you're trying to target and achieve. But you're getting a faster delivery of feature or a faster rollout of a feature is possible. Let's take a sprint way of working, or let's take a Scrum way of working, where at the end of each iteration or a sprint, as we say, we are building a product. So we are building a feature A. Then in sprint 2, we came out with B. In sprint 3, we came out with C. And then sprint 4, we came out with a feature D or a user story D, whatever you would like to call it. One fundamental aspect you will need to understand is that at the end of sprint 2, not only you have to have a test cases for B, which means individual test cases for B which have to be tested, you also need to come out with a what we call as a regression pack for A. You also need to come out with a regression pack for A, which means areas of A which have not undergone a change, you also need to test, because a lot of effort needs to also go into regression testing. So that is fundamentally one change what you will see, that your testing effort is going to increase. So this arrow is nothing but your testing effort. So even as far as your agile testing is concerned, it is iterative. It believes on continuous testing, and the focus is going to be on regression testing, which means that as you move ahead, you will find that a majority of the time, the teams will be spending on regression testing effort. So a lot of effort is also going to go on your regression testing, right? And which makes regression testing a perfect candidate for automation. Because if you don't make these test cases automated, what's going to happen is you're going to spend time after time every sprint. So it's better to make these test cases. So if you ask me personally, your regression test cases are the perfect candidate for automation, which means these are the test cases which should be automated first. These are the first level of test cases which need to be automated. And these are the regression test cases what we have. And yes, there's also an automation strategy which is coming up ahead, and we'll talk about it. What exactly is this automation strategy? How exactly it will work? We'll talk about it in detail. So another important thing when we're talking about agile testing is having a risk-based testing approach. What is a risk-based testing approach? A risk-based testing approach is an approach where we fundamentally know that exhaustive testing is impossible. I think this is a fundamental testing principle. We all know, right? That exhaustive testing is something which is impossible. You cannot test all the possible scenarios. You cannot test all the possible combinations. So what is important is that have a risk-based testing strategy in place. What is a risk-based testing strategy? You identify the prioritized areas of the application. In fact, I will go to a next level. I will say that identify a prioritized set of user stories and have a detailed testing on those user stories which are critical to business or CTB, and maybe have a lesser coverage on those areas which may not have that much of an impact or which may not have that much of a probability, right? So you have to identify risk-based testing scenarios. So what you have to do is you have to identify the impact if this feature gets untested. What will be the impact in terms of not only money, by the way. So one important thing which we all need to understand is if a product fails on a Play Store, people are downloading that product and that product is failing. It's not just about bug fixing that, okay, I rectified it in the next 1 hour and the system was up and running and people could download a patch on their smartphone and the app is running. It's also about reputational risk. Reputational risk is very hard to gain. I am pretty sure you would have heard about this story about Volkswagen CEO had to quit the organization a couple of years back. I think 8-10 years back it came. And the reason was that their anti-pollution test results were fudged. The data of testing results of pollution norms were fudged, what the car was giving, and it went right up to the CEO's desk. The accountability went right up to the CEO's desk and he had to quit, right? So it's very important for us to identify the impact that if this feature goes poorly tested or it is under tested in terms of coverage, what will be the impact? The impact could be low, the impact could be high, or the impact could be medium. And then the probability. What are the chances of this happening? What predominantly are the chances of this happening? And again, probability can be low, medium, high. And based on this, we calculate the risk coverage. Now, risk coverage, one of the ways of representing this is in a heat map like this. So this heat map shows the green color, the amber color, and the red color. So user stories which are in the red color will have to be tested more. The ones which are in the green color will be low impact or a low consequence, low probability. We can have a lesser coverage. Again, I'm not saying that you should completely skip testing. Okay, please don't get an impression that I'm recommending that completely skip testing. That is not what I'm saying. But let's say out of 100 test cases to be executed in a sprint, maybe 80 is what you will keep it in the red zone. 15 is what you will keep it in the yellow zone, and 5 is what you will keep it for the green zone. So that's what I'm trying to hint here. We are not saying that we will completely skip the green zone test cases at all. That will be a fundamentally a risky strategy for a risk-based testing itself. So what I'm trying to tell here is try to have a risk-based testing strategy, like a very simple example. Let's take a very simple example. The COVID vaccination site. If you would have seen right now, they're adding changes every week. There's a change which has been added. Okay, so today morning when I saw, you know what? They have added a map selection. They've added a map selection. So let me quickly show you that site. So that we understand what I'm trying to tell here. So I'm opening up the site here, COVID site here. And if you look at this, last week, there were only two options available, search by PIN and search by district. And in search by district, you can pick up your state. And within that state, you will have to select your district. And then it gives you all the vaccination centers. And then, of course, even this one, they added it later. This one, they added it later. Now, if you ask me, if I go by a risk-based testing strategy, I will test the COVID shield combination the first, then Covaxin. And if time permits, I will go for Sputnik. The reason being, this is a business scenario today. Hardly any center is delivering Sputnik. So the people hitting that particular site will be comparatively lesser. Okay, people hitting that particular option, Sputnik, will be lesser. Similarly, search by map. Very few people might be using it because this feature was rolled out today morning only. Most of the people will prefer to go by a PIN, and most of the people will like to go by the district. They will like to search the vaccination site by district. So I will give a higher concentration of test cases for district, or rather I would put it for a PIN. So for example, if I know the PIN numbers in my area, 411045, and then the other PIN numbers around it, I will give a higher weightage for this PIN. Then the second priority will be for district, and probably the third priority will be by search for map, right? Tomorrow, you never know. Next week, they might introduce one more tab. They might have another filtering criteria, right? That check your nearest vaccination center based on kilometer. They will give you range 0 to 5 kilometers, 6 to 10 kilometers, 10 to 15, 15 to 20, like that. They might have that also as a criteria. You never know, right? So the whole intent, what I'm trying to tell in risk-based testing strategy is that don't spend time in testing all the test cases. You will never get time, believe me. And this is a fundamental mistake which we make. And my recommendation would be that when we're doing a sprint planning activity, when we know that these are the user stories we are going to pick, that time only we should be performing a risk-based testing strategy. So that's a best point in time to come out with a risk-based testing strategy. Okay, so risk-based testing strategy involves identifying risks, assessing the risk, then trying to come out with a mitigation step in terms of test cases that, okay, these are the test cases. Once I execute these test cases, my coverage would be increased, thereby my risk will be reduced, and risk management, the overall risk management. Now, one of the important things what we also do in a risk-based testing strategy is we plot a burn down chart. Now, I'm not talking about a normal burn down chart. Okay, just to make things clear here, I'm talking about a risk burn down chart. So what does a risk burn down chart show? A risk burn down chart shows just like a normal burn down chart. On x-axis, you will have days in the sprint. You will have days in the sprint, and on y-axis, you will be having what we call as a risk exposure. So you'll be computing the risk exposure, and risk exposure is nothing but probability multiplied by impact. So that's a formula of risk exposure. That is what I will be plotting on my y-axis. Risk exposure, which is nothing but probability multiplied by impact, and the number of days in the sprint is on the x-axis. And I think we all know, like in any normal burn down chart, in a risk burn down chart also, we will be having an ideal line. So the blue color line, which is a 45-degree line, would be the ideal burn down of the risk. Ideal risk burn down. This is what the blue color line will represent. And of course, as we all know, there will be a red color line, which will talk about how the team is performing from a risk management perspective. The expectation is ideally ideally at the end of the day or at the end of the last day, your entire set of risks should have been mitigated, right? Your risk, or in fact earlier also. Why not earlier? You can also make sure that before the sprint ends, all my risks have been mitigated. But sometimes, you know what, very strange thing happens. This suddenly spikes up. And the reason could be that your sprint has become more riskier. Something has happened, either a change request has come in or you could not estimate it properly. And what has happened is that your sprint has become more riskier. If there's a bump up in this chart, which is called as a risk burn down chart. So again, repeating, I'm not talking about a normal burn down chart. I'm talking about a risk burn down chart, which is also one of the important metric. So apart from your velocity and all those metrics, which I think we have debated multiple times in multiple forums, the efficacy of those metrics, what is also important is the risk burn down chart. Like how exactly is your risk burn down chart behaving, right? So that's one important metric, what we also track from a risk effectiveness perspective. So that's one of the strategy what we have. And most importantly, as a testing member or as a key member of an agile team, let me could not call myself as a testing member. One of the fundamental thing I need to do is I need to identify who all are the various stakeholders in my entire engagement. So this is a very broad term, I understand. But remember, as a testing person or the person who is involved in testing activities, you need to deal with various stakeholders. It's your business, it's your product owner, it's your customer, it's your end user, it's your DevOps team or the engineering team, it's your subject matter experts, it's your database team, and then even from a customer perspective, you'll have to get the test data. So it is very important to establish a clear and a succinct communication with your stakeholders, because remember, stakeholders are someone with whom you have to manage the relationship very, very properly, right? Because as you can see here, right, there are multiple stakeholders with whom you are working. There are multiple stakeholders with whom you need to interact. So you need to have a robust test strategy planned in advance, that okay, this is how I'm going to interact with these stakeholders, who is having what kind of information, where I will get this information from, is what is of very, very vital information here, right? I've also seen that when a new person joins a testing as a testing professional in an agile team, I've seen some very mature teams having a video of the product rather than maintaining a physical documentation in form of, let's say, wikis, or in form of any, I would say, of course, gone are the days of printed manuals. But digital manuals also, they are preferring to have a video kind of a manual rather than a digital manual, if I were to say. So stakeholder management is also something which is very, very vital and which is very, very important. So that's another important thing we need to understand, that how do we manage the stakeholders. Okay, now coming to the automation strategy per se, one fundamental mistake which we all make is we create automation, maximum automation happens at this layer, which is the GUI level. But you know what? The classic pyramid of test automation in an agile world says that at the lowest level of pyramid, maximum automation should happen for your unit and component test cases. And the least amount of automation should happen for GUI automation. And the fundamental reason for this is, remember, I told you that over sprint by sprint, your regression testing effort is going to increase, right? So your regression testing effort will be mostly covering these scenarios, your unit and component integration and your API layers. Your API layers or automation layer or the business rules layer is where maximum of your test cases can be automated. And another challenge is, if you're automating GUI test cases, remember that tomorrow, if even a small pixel changes, you will have to go ahead back and recreate that script. You'll have to regenerate that script again, right? Even a small pixel change, what's going to happen is you will have to go back and recreate that smallest script as such. So it's very important that get our priorities right. So the priorities should be to have a larger number of test cases at the bottom level of the pyramid, which is unit and component layer, automated, and have a lesser number of test cases on top, to be automated. And if you look at the extreme top, there's a layer called exploratory testing. So what is exploratory testing? Exploratory testing plays a very significant role in an agile way of working. Exploratory testing is all about giving the tester a free hand to explore the product, right? So this is usually done after the regular test cases have been executed. So once the regular test cases have been compiled and executed, you go ahead and do exploratory testing. And exploratory testing, you may not get time to automate. Although I have seen even some very efficient agile teams also automating exploratory test cases. But usually exploratory test cases are something which are a candidate for manual testing more, because it's on the run. It talks about minimal planning, maximum execution. That's the core fundamental of exploratory testing or exploration testing. Okay, let me next go to a very interesting model. This is by Lisa Crispin, not Lisa Adkins. Okay, Lisa Adkins is an agile coach. Lisa Crispin is a expert agile testing professional. She has proposed this model, and this is called as the model of 4 quadrants, or the 4 quadrant model of agile testing. So what is this model talking about? What this model talks about is that each of the quadrant has got some unique set of test cases. Now, let me first explain the axis of this model. The first axis we have is test cases which are technology facing, which means these test cases rely heavily on a testing tool. You cannot really write or execute these test cases without the help of the tool. So these are called as technology facing test cases. The second quadrant what we have is business test facing test cases. These are the test cases which business can easily find out. For example, if it is a credit card application, I don't know whether they have used Java or .NET, or which is a I would say the middleware or a database. But I definitely know that if it is a MasterCard, I cannot enter a 4-digit CVV number there. It has to be a 3-digit CVV number, right? Or if it is a MasterCard, my card number cannot be more than 16 digit. That is a business facing test which I will do, right? So if I go on the Citibank site, I try to enter a 17 digit or a 18 digit card number, it is not going to accept, right? Because that's a business facing test. The third important thing is tests which support the team. Tests which are actually supporting the team is what is the third piece what we have. The test cases which are helping the team in finding defects. And the fourth quadrant is tests which criticize the team, or tests which expose the fault lines of the team. So if these test cases are successful, what's going to happen is as a team, we are going to be exposed. So those are the 4 quadrants. Those are what we call as the 4 quadrants of this very interesting model, which is called as the Lisa Crispin's model of testing what we have. And now let us try to understand this model. Let us further try to understand what this model is all about. So if you look at this green color area, or the green color tile, it is a combination of 1 and 3. So the combination of 1 and 3 means technology facing tests which support the team. So the technology facing tests which are supporting the team is called as the green color tile. These are mostly automated test cases. So if you look at these test cases, they're mostly going to be automated in nature. So the best candidate for this is unit test, component test. Unit test or a component test will be the best kind of a combination for this. The blue color combination, okay, sorry, I made a mistake. It should be 1, it is 1 and 3 only. Sorry, yeah, it is 1 and 2. So this is 2 actually. Just wanted to correct it. If there's a typo, this is 2. Okay. The next tile which is of interest to us is the blue color tile, a combination of 2 and 3. Business facing tests which support the team. So there are a lot of business facing tests which are also supporting the team, like story test, wireframe test, prototyping, simulation. And this is a mix and match of automation and manual. So if you look at these type of tests, they are a mix and match of automation test cases and manual test cases. The blue color test cases what we have, or the blue tile what we have. Next we have 2 and 4. 2 and 4, the orange color tile, business facing tests which critique the product or which criticize the product. The best example of this is UAT, user acceptance testing, alpha test, beta test. Remember what happens if the UAT bounces off, or if the UAT is a failure. As I said, it's not just about defect, or it's not just about money, or you will rectify it in next 2 hours without charging the customer. There's a reputational loss also which has happened. There's a reputational risk which has been realized, and because of which there's a loss of image, what has happened, right? So those are the orange color tests. Scenario testing, exploratory testing, usability testing. Usability testing is getting a lot of importance these days, by the way. Usability testing is all about how user friendly your product is. Is it easy to navigate, or is it too cumbersome to navigate, right? Can we easily do the transaction on that, or it is too difficult to navigate, right? So that talks about usability test scenarios, alpha test, beta test. Okay, and then the last tile, a combination of 1 and 4, technology facing tests which critique the product, which are nothing but your performance testing, load testing, stress testing, those kind of testing, security testing, right? Vulnerability testing. So all the ELT testing or the test activities what we do. So those will come under the last tile what we have, which is your technology facing tests which are critiquing the product or which are criticizing the product, if I were to say. So the green color tests are 100% to be automated. A blue color test cases is a mix and match of automation and manual. And your orange color tests are 100% manual because they are done by the customer. And again, coming back to the blue color test cases, they don't use the word automation. They call it as tools. So you will need tools like Performance Center. You will need tools like Selenium, etc., or Load Runner, etc., to test those blue color test cases, what we have from a performance point of view, right? So this is a very interesting, I would say, model. This is a very interesting model what we have, which talks about these 4 types of tests and how these 4 types of tests are something which are placed or which are actually captured in the quadrant. So this is the very famous Lisa Crispin's model, which I said, which helps you decide that how are you going to do the testing, or what will be your testing strategy. I'm going to show you one more slide, and this is a kind of a strategy which we followed in one of our engagement. It might sound very weird what I'm going to talk, but we came out with a 1-pager test plan. See, one of the fundamental premise of Agile is to be lean, right? Is to have lean documentation, or is to have as less documentation as we can. And believe me, it's not even a 1-pager test plan. It is a 1-slide test plan what we came out with. So this 1-slide test plan is something which I'm going to show you here. This was the test plan we had for this entire project. So we had the features or the usernames in rows. If you see, these were the features or the usernames which we had in rows. And for each of the feature or rows, we came out with a Moscow model. We somehow came out with a Moscow model. Now, we all know that a Moscow model is used predominantly for your feature prioritization, right? Must have requirements, should have requirements, could have requirement, or won't have requirement. We actually use the Moscow model here. Must have test cases, should have test cases, could have test cases, right? Or consider these. So, and if you look there, we have listed down the test cases on top: unit, integration, system, regression, UAT. By the way, these are for a sprint. These are for a sprint. We also came out with this plan at a release level. And A indicates automation, M indicates manual, AM indicates a mix and match of automation and manual. So we actually plotted there in that cell. In that cell, we entered which of the test cases are to be automated, which of the test cases have to be manual, or which is a combination. NR means not required. So like, for example, for a user story, we said that a regression is not required in the first sprint. That is why we said NR. AM, as I said, is a combination. Question mark indicates more clarity needed. Question mark was indicating that we need more clarity in this. And we also had a column for any assumptions or any notes which we had to write, any tool we were using, and what were the environment. What were the environment in which this was carried out. Now, this is a very effective tool if you ask me from an agile testing perspective, that your entire test visibility appears on a single page. So on a single page, you can actually see what's happening, what's not happening, which are the stories which have been completed or not. And then, of course, if you want, you can add one more column, whether at the end of the sprint, was this completed or not? At the end of the sprint, was this completed? Was this not completed? Is what you can put it at the end of the column. That is only if you would like to keep it, right? That is only if you would like to keep it and you would like to showcase it to them that yes, this is a status. This is a status what we have of our test plan, the one page testing strategy, or a one page test plan. If I were to say, this is what this model is predominantly talking about. Believe me, it helped us a lot. It helped us a lot in bringing about what we call as an agile way of working. It helped us a lot in bringing about that lean thinking mindset, because till then everyone was thinking that, you know what, agile is about zero documentation. We clearly made that it is not zero documentation. At the end of the day, it is about lean documentation. So however lean you can make, you should be making the agile way of working. So when we say agile, it's about lean way of documentation, what we call about. Now, having said that, we also applied some of the concepts. I'm not going into the details of them, to be very honest, but we applied concepts like test driven development, which is nothing but test first development plus refactoring. That was also a part of our testing strategy, right? So this is nothing but your test driven development. Test first development with refactoring is what we applied. And then we also applied acceptance test driven development, ATDD model. So those definitely were the models which were applied in our transformation. But a bigger story or the message which I would like to give here before I finally wrap up the session, it's all about inspect and adapt. What I showed you was the agile testing strategy, which we adapted in one of our engagements and which we continue to replicate, which has reaped us benefit. Using that 4-quadrant model of Lisa Crispin, and making sure that the team actually builds in an agile product, right? So that's what we discussed. And on that note, I would like to take a pause here and open up for any questions. So I'll just unmute you and I will just open up for any questions. So anyone has any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question.
Hey, hi, Ashutosh.
Yes, hi Nitin, yeah, tell me.
Yeah, hi Ashutosh. First of all, thanks for the wonderful session. So Ashutosh, with functional aspects, there is also something called as social and emotional aspects as well. So basically, what social and emotional factors do we need to test, and how we can measure them?
Okay, very interesting question. This is mainly applicable for your social media apps like Twitter, Facebook, etc. Yes, I mean, you'll have to test your user preferences, you'll have to test your user styles. So that's again a part and parcel of your usability testing. That's again something which is coming up in usability testing. I'll give a very interesting example. This is not my example. One of my friends told me. So they were developing a software for blind people who are having limited visibility. So this software was having voice command recognition. It was having Braille script embedded in it. That panels with which through which the input can be done by the blind people. Because see, blind people cannot use keyboards like us, right? So they had given an interface, and through that interface they were doing data entry, and then the data, once the data was being added, the software was validating it. Now, you know what, for the user acceptance testing, they actually went to a blind school and they did the testing there. And there were a lot of interesting scenarios which these people gave them from a empathy based testing, right? What we are talking about. So you have to really put yourself into the shoe of a blind people. And you know what, my friend actually had a kind of a cloth on his eyes and was trying to use that software and he could not use it. He said, oh my God, this is a software what my team has developed, but I am unable to use this software. And then the blind people actually told him how this software has to be used, what is missing, what are the good things you have done, what are the not so good things you have done. So they were the ones who gave them this feedback. So yeah, I mean, it is an upcoming field. It is called putting yourself into the shoes of the customer and then testing, or becoming a CEO for the day, as we say, right? I mean, you become the customer and then you try to test it. In fact, what we also encourage as a part of agile testing is that before a demo, right? Before a system demo or before a release and demo, you get it tested by someone else in your team, someone else in your organization, someone who has not worked in the project, so that that biasness is removed. So we actually do a kind of a dummy demo, if I were to put it, and we get it tested. So in a dummy demo, what happens is you invite me for a demo and I act like a customer. I act like a real customer and give you the feedback.
Yeah, thanks, Ashutosh.
Thanks.
You very nicely addressed that. So maybe blind and all these things are too difficult for us and to me at this point in time. I was just requesting you from a normal end user product perspective.
Correct.
Yeah, but you addressed that there. Thank you.
Thanks. Yes. Yeah, anyone else?
Hey, hi, Ashutosh, Parag here.
Yeah, Parag. Yes.
Yeah, I joined a little bit late, but one quick question, right? As we are talking about agile testing today. So, in a transformation, to start with the training for the team, basically at the Scrum level, I'm not going at a safe level right now. So, the role-wise training for testing, what concept it should include? I mean, does it? We have to go in a depth, at the initial level when you are doing pilot project of implementing Scrum or Kanban at the starting. So what do you suggest?
Yeah,
about
definitely. I
testing?
mean, yeah, because see, as I said, right, I mean, this picture is in front of you. Most of us come with this mindset when we come into an agile project. We still remain that siloed team of 3 developers, 2 testers, or 4 developers, 1 tester. So to break that mentality, obviously you will need to coach them and train them together. So I would say that the agile testing concepts have to be reiterated right from the first day of your release. It is not something which you can do it later, because otherwise what will happen is you will end up having waterfall in a sprint, which means what mostly happens is the first 8 days you do development, the next 2 days you do testing, which is nothing but a waterfall project just under the cover of an agile container or a wrapper, if I were to say. So again, my recommendation is to train them from day 1 itself, rather than waiting for a longer time.
Sure. Thank you, Ashutosh.
Okay, anyone else? Any questions?
Hi, Ashutosh. Priya here.
Yeah, Priya, hi.
Yeah. So thanks for the session. Though I just joined a bit late, it was very informative as a refreshing part. So one thing that I wanted to highlight on the testing aspects with the couple of years that I've worked with this, I just wanted to share one small experience that would help the team to take it forward. So the beautiful example that you were trying to quote in terms of the technology facing as well as the imbibing of your manual and automation test cases, right? So your portion or quotient of test data slide, or the input that you gave into that particular slide was actually giving the pinch of salt towards it. But I would recommend, I would try to convey you that, or the entire team, while we try to work along with the stakeholders and particularly on the test data, right? So the moment you ask for the test data, you will have your test scenarios or your test cases also kept ready. So you can also frame a matrix mapping towards the test cases, which will also help the team to cover the test scenarios as such and have a better coverage in terms of testing. So we know how to do requirement matrix mapping to the test cases, right? So similarly, we can also do it mapping towards the test data. So this is one of my learning that I tried implementing, and trust me that the time taken for testing is always very less comparatively over the development life cycle, right? So that input has actually helped us to take it forward. So I just thought that I'll try to share it with you so that it gives everyone a better value to what we are doing right now.
Yeah. Thanks, Priya, for highlighting it. Yes, I mean, you're talking about another set of traceability. We normally have a traceability from the code to the requirement. Here you're talking about within test cases to test data. Yes, absolutely. I mean, yes, and many times, and of course, this is a known thing. Not that I'm telling something new. Even the test data, what we get is a mass test data. It may not be the actual test data, especially in a banking organization, or let's say you're developing a product for Amazon. They will never share with you the live data. For example, from that data, you will never get my demographic details, like where do I stay, what all I have ordered. It will be mix and match. It will be I would say some mashup data which they will give. And yes, establishing that traceability, scramble data as they call it, by establishing that traceability with that main requirements and with the main test cases first is also very, very important. Absolutely right. Yes.
And now we are also talking about the implementation of Lean and Kanban as well, right? So I would part sometime on the Kanban part. While we do this activity, this will enable us to have a better clarity in terms of the Lean development. So you as a testing team can ensure that Lean practices well built within the test cases, and you will also know which test cases to be executed. And the moment you work on a particular test cases during the particular sprint cycles, you'll end up getting more number of regression cases, right? So you will have more confidence in terms of which components are getting broken, or the impacts are very, very less comparatively. So I think that crunch is actually a very essential for us to have. You can always say, how did you implement Lean in terms of your testing? So this could be one of the best practice that you can also
Correct. I
put
mean,
along.
lean way of testing, yeah, test a little, but being more effective, right? Again, that 80-20 rule applies there. If you can identify that a lot of 20 out of 100 test cases, which gives you 80% of the value, nothing like it. I mean, identify
Right.
that waste and eliminate the waste, and identify that smaller number of subset of test cases, which will help you to get 80% of the coverage. I think nothing like it.
Yeah. Yeah, Ashutosh, I think I'm done. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Priya. Yeah. Anyone else? Any quick questions?
Sorry to interrupt, Ashutosh. You'll be posting this PPT on the site, or
So this is
will be
already
able
on
to?
YouTube. So if you are connected on my YouTube channel, you will get this entire recording there. It always goes on YouTube.
Sure. I'll take it from there. Thanks, Ashutosh.
Okay. Any other questions anyone has? Okay. Anyone would like to come on a camera for a quick snap? I mean, it's again voluntary, not compulsory. If you would like to come on a camera for a quick snap, more than happy to have you. If you would like to come, you can just enable your video cameras, and yeah, I'll be more than happy to connect with you. Okay. As I said, right, I mean, we have it every Friday. So this session happens every Friday. I mean, we're trying to get more speakers also as we move ahead. But obviously, I mean, we had a couple of speakers who are planning to come, but obviously there was a family problem they had, and right, I mean, because of pandemic and all. But yeah, we are trying to get in more speakers with more interesting topics in future. So do continue to join this session. It's every Friday. At least we try to be there every Friday, 8 p.m. IST, with a lot of speakers, lot of interesting topics. And yeah, on that note, I think we will close for the day, and have a safe weekend to all of you, and stay healthy, and take care of your family. So thanks once again for joining, and wishing you all the best for your career. Bye for
Thanks,
now.
Josh.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot.
thanks. Bye.
Thanks.
Hi, Daman.
Thanks,
Bye.
Ashutosh. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks.